Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about something completely off topic for my channel. And as many of you know, I am classified as an essential worker, so I am lucky enough to still be going to work every morning. Not everyone is. And I have been working through this lockdown, and which started on the 25th or 26th of March. So we are pretty much almost tomorrow, we are 3 weeks into the lockdown that is supposed to last for at least 4 weeks. But most New Zealanders have probably had to work from home, or they've just been sent home with, if they're lucky, 80% of their salary. And for some people, there are a lot of contractors working, especially where I live in Nelson in New Zealand. There's lots of contractors working, and if they are not getting job, they're not getting paid. So if you go through an employment agency or a staffing agency, I've done that myself, you're not going to get paid. So this is how it all starts. And yesterday my employer gathered us all for an update, an online meeting. We had a meeting over Zoom, all of us, and they were telling us that they need to cut the staff cost with 58%. So we're going to go from 27 full-time employees to 14. Guess what? People are going to get fired. So the CEO is taking a salary cut with 35%. All senior staff are getting salaries reduced with 10%. And obviously 13 people are losing their jobs. And so the operation is going to scale down to the minimum, and they are looking at a 4-year plan to get back to where we are today, basically. That's what we were told. But it's not even certain that we will survive this the way we are doing it. There is a plan B, but plan B would most likely mean that the company is going to change their structure for forever, probably. And everything they have been working for the last 4 years, pretty much since they started up, or a very long time anyway, and that they have been developing, that's all been for nothing then, because this is something that you need to do over time. It takes a long time to get the process right. And if they did that, they would throw that away, and they would have to sack another 6 people, probably, because they are all process technicians and directly involved in the processes, so there would be no work for them. And then we would have gone from 27 down to 8, and that's not a lot. So what does the New Zealand government do? They compensate all businesses, no matter size, with up to $150,000 for loss of income and loss of or having to pay salaries, etc. But 4 weeks of lockdown, 150,000 New Zealand dollars is not even covering the staff cost. Not to speak of everything else that we can't do. Now, some parts of the businesses have been running. They have ceased this week because of these news, and the final say is still yet to come on Friday this week. So as far as I know, I am extremely lucky that I have the knowledge that I do, and that I was employed in the role that I was employed in, because that means that I can do my job, and I can also do the job of the quality control. The staff that have been working in the quality control lab, they are both fired. So there is no lab person other than me left in the company if we are continuing. It's entirely possible that I'm going to lose my job as well. Maybe not this week, maybe 2 months down the line. But either way, there is a very strong possibility that that might happen. And the worst thing is that the people that are losing their jobs, it's not because they're bad at what they're doing. They are people that I respect, people that I like, people that have really good knowledge of how things are working within the company and outside of the company, and they deserve to keep their jobs. But instead, I am the lucky one who gets to help the company go in the direction that they have decided that they're going to go, which is continue with the more expensive stuff and developing new products, but that is costing money, and we don't have that right now. So I don't feel guilty for not having lost my job, or as some might see it, even though we're not even working in the same lab, there have been other lab staff there who have been there for a longer period of time than me. And they might think that they would be entitled to take over my role rather than me taking over their role. But as I said, I'm lucky that I have the knowledge and the title that I have. Otherwise, things might not have been as straightforward. So I know it's not my decision. I'm not one to take the blame for things like that, but my heart is really going out to everyone who's been losing their jobs, not just in my company, but obviously around the world, because it's many people often complain about how shit things are at work, etc. But in the end of the day, we all need our salaries to survive. And most people that have been fired, or maybe have to go down in hours if you're lucky, they have mortgages, they have families, they may have kids, and they have to pay for all of these things. Nothing is free. And we all have expenses that rely on our income, and we can't always change our circumstances right away. And on top of that, where I live is extremely expensive. 55% of my current salary is my rent. So other people who have lost their jobs, they have a similar mortgage or similar salary in this expensive area. What's going to happen? They might not be able to stay. Now, the renting situation might improve in a little while when the market is readjusting, and it might be affordable to live here for once. So that might, if I get to keep my job, might be a good thing for me personally, but I don't think it's a good thing. So this is pretty much what killing the economy looks like when you start at the bottom and you get this domino effect. So when enough small businesses are facing a fate like the one I'm working for, or even worse, they might have to shut down completely. The people that own those businesses, they're probably going to be in huge debts themselves. All the people that work for them, they're going to lose their jobs. None of these people will have any money to do anything. They won't be able to buy things. They won't be able to even pay for their rent. And people are going to have to go into debt because they won't be able to pay the bills. And what happens then? We're facing increased depression. We're facing people are officially going to become homeless. And many people can barely afford to put food on the table today. How are they going to be able to afford that? People will have to move to other areas that are cheaper if the landlords allow them to, because who wants a tenant that doesn't have a job? You don't know if they're going to be able to pay the rent. Are they going to be able to get the housing? The suicide rates always go up when the unemployment is higher, and that's going to happen. We're going to face increased employment. People are going to commit suicide at a much higher rate than today. So, and with less money in your pocket, people who are ill, they're not going to be able to afford going to the doctor if they don't feel well. They might have a serious condition that they can treat if they catch it in time, but instead people are going to wait. They're not going to go because you don't feel that bad, so you may as well just wait a little bit longer until it's too late, and they're going to die from those diseases rather than catching them early and actually cure them. People are going to start eating worse food, because what's the cheapest food out there? Pot noodles and 99-cent soda. Just ask any student what they're eating. So is this the price that we want to pay for slowing down this virus? Having a massive amount of people having to go through this. There's going to be a lot more people suffering due to the economy than people at risk of dying in New Zealand. So my question is, are we actually saving lives with this lockdown, or are we just fucking everything up? Because that's what it feels like, what we're doing right now. Now, it is a possibility that we're only doing the 4 weeks, but I don't imagine that we're going back to normal. But for my company, it's already too late. And I think that's the reality for a lot of companies out there, especially the small ones or the medium small ones. So it's very, very tragic that people die. But my question is still is whether we're actually saving any lives here when we're doing this. Perhaps we are killing more people by going into a lockdown. It just takes a little bit longer. So you want to see it on a daily count of how many people have died, and you can't directly correlate these deaths to the lockdown. And you wouldn't know whether those people would have died otherwise. But there are many ways, and I mentioned a few, that our death rate is probably going to go up, which is not going to be directly caused by the coronavirus. It's more indirectly by the way we're handling the situation. So whereas I understand that some individuals might think that we should remain in lockdown for a very long period of time, especially if we have lost someone that is near and dear to us, or we think that this would have been preventable. So I can understand why you would think like that, but my question is still, is it preventable? I very much doubt it. And it's not just about those who are dying, it's also about those who are about to, or have had their lives destroyed by the radical changes and, you know, everything that is happening. Even, you know, small businesses like small butchers, they're closing them down. In my opinion, they're essential. These people might not be able to start those businesses up again because they don't have that much margin. And that is healthy food that affects us all. If we can't get our hands on healthy meat, we might start eating something else that is cheaper. So, is it right to shut down a whole country just to save a few lives, if that was the case? I personally think New Zealand could have handled this differently. We're a very small country, and there's basically just one large city where I would worry about a large outbreak that that could result in some chaos. So I have all my family living in Sweden, which is basically on the other side of the world, and they're doing some things, but as I've said before, they're doing them a little bit half-assed. So I don't think that they're actually slowing things down that much. Some people are working from home, but restaurants are still open. People are going to the supermarket, and they only just very recently introduced the distancing lines at the checkouts in the supermarkets. They're not dropping like flies like in Italy. So why is that? They just come out of winter. Their immune systems should be fucked up. Am I worried about them? No, I'm not worried about them. Even though my mom is over 60. Why am I not worried? Because what is the likelihood that my mom is going to catch it? She might catch it. But what's the likelihood then that she's going to be really, really ill? I don't know. But I don't think we can prevent it. That's why I'm not worrying. I think it's going to happen sooner or later. It's just a matter of when it happens. And now it turns out that the ventilators might be killing people rather than helping people. So it's not even about that. Maybe we're buying a little bit more time so we can get a more efficient method of dealing with it. But at what cost? Just want to put the question out there. So these are just, just my thoughts. If I was, let's say, living in a huge city in the US, or whatever, you have cities that are larger than many countries in the US, and people are basically stacked on top of each other, then maybe you totally disagree with me and you think we should have a complete lockdown. If I had been there with you and seen what's going on in that city, I would probably agree with you. But the thing is that we have to put everything into context. So I'm talking about New Zealand and how New Zealand is populated and what is happening here, which is totally different from some parts of the US. So we have a low population, we're pretty well spread out, apart from one city, Auckland. Even the other large cities are not that large, relatively speaking. So that was pretty much all I wanted to say today, and I just needed to share some of the consequences that this lockdown has had and how quickly it happened, within 20 days. Obviously it took less because it was 20 days until it was announced to us, but they could already see that this is not going to work. They're losing too much money. Now, my company might not have been making enough money, but if you are having companies that can stay alive and they kind of borderline and you do this, they're gone straight away. So no matter what your personal opinion is, I love you. Please stay safe, have an open mind, just, love yourself, love your neighbor, all of that. We're all in this together. We just don't necessarily agree on what the approach should be, and the approach shouldn't necessarily be the same all over the world, in my opinion. So I will see you again very soon. Bye.